What is up, everybody? It's Revv time, and today we're going to be talking about two pedals, the Revv G2 and the Revv G3, and the differences between the two pedals. We get a lot of questions coming into the web page asking, well, which pedal would be best for me? So I'm going to try and explain, at least from my experience and how I play, how these pedals work, at least for me. I tend to gravitate towards the G2. The G2 is, think of that as more of like a modified like JCM Marshall type of thing, and it's a little bit more open, and it's a very dynamic pedal. The G3, think of that as more of a modern kind of higher gain pedal, but with some compression. Not overly compressed, but it is a little bit more focused. It certainly has a lot more gain. It boils down to, you know, what feel do you prefer, and really, you know, how much gain do you prefer. So let's just start by letting you hear the guitar and the amp. So I am using my D20 over here. Here's just the guitar straight into the amp, so you have an idea what's going on. I've got it dialed pretty clean. If I go to that back humbucker, I can get it to break up a little bit. That's what's going on with the amp. Let's start with the G2, and then we'll go from there. So right now, that's a decent amount of gain for, like, you know, a rhythm tone on a back humbucker. If I go to the neck position, so that's in the center aggression mode. Essentially, that drive setting is what would be considered neutral. Now, you know, we can get quite a bit more gain simply by just turning up the gain control without touching the drive circuit. So that's quite a bit of gain right there, but it doesn't feel super compressed. It feels good. But yeah, that to me is more of like a, yeah, JCM-ish kind of thing. Maybe a little bit modded. Just really quick, I'll throw it to the blue drive setting. Now that setting does have a little bit more sag to it. It's definitely got a little more top end. And you can hear there's also more low end there. And then I'll go to the red mode. So there's a broad gain range on the G2, but overall I feel like the G2 is for players that don't necessarily want a more compressed modern sounding pedal as much as more of a kind of a JCM thing. So let's go straight from that to the G3. Now on the G3 I'm going to leave that aggression mode center, and then we'll go from there. There's a lot more gain there, just in the middle aggression mode. The feel is something you can't hear. It does feel like it's got a little more sag and compression to it, but it's also tight. So if you're more into solos or way heavier gain sounds, especially like metal tones, maybe not necessarily all the way over to like gent. The G4 might be better for that. The G3 is a little more, you know, as I keep saying, a little more compressed in nature. So for soloing, it feels really great. It's got just the right amount of sag, but doesn't come loose on me. Now, without changing anything, I can go to the blue aggression mode. More low end, a little more top end, about the same amount of compression. So if you want less compression, more gain, maybe leave it in the center and crank the gain. If you're wanting quite a bit more gain than that, you could go to the blue setting. More gain, a little more compression. We can go red. We go back to the G2. Less gain, a little more open. Loves neck positions, especially single coils. I'll put the G3 back in the center. More modern sounding. So that's really it. I think, in my opinion, you know, I gravitate towards the G2. I don't play with as much gain. I'm more of a like rock to blues player. I like it to be a little more open, maybe a little bit less compressed. The G3 is going to be more for the rock player that likes a more modern kind of high gain tone, or metal players, especially if you're, you know, taking a lot of solos. I would consider this my solo box. You know, I could have this one set up in the blue mode, keep the G2 set up in the middle aggression mode, and go between the two. So that's my rhythm sound. And then for my solo tone, so you could definitely use the two together, but if you're just picking one, then yeah, it just depends on what type of player you are. So that is the G2 and the G3, the differences that I sense between the two pedals as a player. Let me know what you guys are using in the comments. That would be awesome. And as always, I really appreciate you guys checking out the channel, and we will see you next time.